The intent of the program launch is primarily to help digital consumer brands, both Indian and global, get into the Indian market. Because the Indian market is very unique, very large, very complex, but it needs certain elements to scale up. And that's why we're looking for very unique brands in fashion, food and beverages, digital commerce, and personal care. As a program, this is going to be run out of Mumbai to start with, but the intent is to go across India. The first batch of companies are going to be between 5 and 10 startups that we'll look at. We'll provide some capital, initial capital for them, and then also the marketing and sales support. Rana is going to speak to you in a bit, but he also owns a company called Quan, which also has the celebrity engagement. So we also like to see which brands can actually, which celebrities can endorse which brands. But that's after. Firstly, we'd like to look at what the business models are, how we can help them scale up, all of that stuff. With that being said, I'm going to give it to Rana to introduce himself and why he's here and what is our association. So I'll let him speak on that.
Hello, good morning, slightly late afternoon, but thank you guys for coming. And just to continue on what Prasad spoke, I've been part with Antle Ventures. We built something called the Antle Studios about a year and a half ago. The first focus was technology in the media and entertainment business. So we kind of ran out a program and started picking up interesting new tech in the visual effects space, in augmented reality, in virtual reality, and then moved to blockchain. So these were things that were never in the movie business, never in the entertainment field, but through these channels we were able to find out the ways it was done in the rest of the world and were able to scale those things up here. And moving to urbanization in terms of consumer brands focus for right now, I've been associated with Quan for over 2.5 years, and we've been seeing that the model of advertising has been changing for every single product because the want of a consumer has been changing. And today, if you see advertising, it's more storytelling than the ad itself. Now, and today's millennial buyers have a very specific way of buying things. They want very specific things. They want the right things, and most of it has gone online. And today we see that there's so many independent entrepreneurs with extremely fine products, but probably not enough capital or not enough sales and marketing support. And I think with this program, that's really what we want to fix with Urban-1. And anything else you would like to add on?
Yeah, I think Rana, clearly mentioned that, media strategy is a very important component now for scaling up consumer brands. The consumption of media at this point has, changed from going to watching big spectacle films in theaters all the way to your houses and to your mobiles. So a media strategy is so important for any digital brand to scale up. Today, most of the millennials, unlike us, unlike me, not him, are actually buying online, and are buying on Instagram, buying on Facebook, right? So that really helps how Rana's expertise, comes from storytelling. And that storytelling comes to the brand now through a platform called Urban-1. And for us, Urban-1 is a platform that can help brands scale up with exponential speed, because that's what we need. Because if startup brands don't scale up really fast, they fall flat. And that's what we have learned in the last 4 years of Antle, is that if you do not have scale and if you do not have speed, you'll die very fast in today's environment. Okay. Yeah, with that, I'd like to open up for questions. Enough of us talking, but like to see what questions you folks have so we can answer them.
Yeah, question from here. You are planning to invest up to 100K, you said, and go up to $1 million on completion of the program. How long do you think a method of investing in that? Yes, would you probably invest in a rate of every monthly thing, or
Sure. So we are a VC fund, Cat One registered fund here, and we have a global fund. We invest from the fund. We typically like to invest a little less early, and that means one check, probably between $50,000 and $100,000, and then watch how the startup is scaling up, and then double down up to $1 million over a period of 1 year. We do think, the startups that are applying it are at different stages. They could be at a stage where they're just launching in the market, which means it's going to take at least a year to scale up. But some of the companies that are coming into the program are already 2 years old, a year old, and all that they need is really a push for market access and celebrity engagement that can probably be just 6 months. Yeah. So that's the, 2 checks. We don't do, it's very difficult for us to do like a monthly kind of a thing. Yeah, we starting off with 4 sectors, which is basically personal care, fashion and accessories, food and beverages, and the 4th one is digital commerce. Yeah.
Very few people know me, but before I was an actor, I used to still work for a studio in Hyderabad, and I still continue having that job. It's always something that's come first to me, and I started with visual effects and tech. That's how I actually got into this business. And with Prasad and Antle, we kind of understood what the collaborations of the media and the entertainment sector could be in this in the consumer brand world, and we realized we're very advertising focused. We constantly build brands, and through storytelling, we can reach people far more than what you can reach in traditional advertising. And today, most of these brands, most of the millennial brands that are in the program, and the ones who are going to follow up, will continue to be people that are very specific in terms of buying. It's reaching that target customer. So I think that's where I lend most support in. And with Kwan, obviously, if there's something that's scaled up enough that we need somebody to endorse it or bring right in, so I think that's something that we'll be able to match very quickly. So it's actually addressed a very old classic problem of ours. As much as you see today, the larger films that are being made are using huge visual effects. We're using cutting edge technology to kind of make those films. But if you go back and see how the trade is done, it's exactly how it was done like 100 years ago. It's the same buyers, the same set of people. So first, and as today, as the volume of content has increased so much, I mean, it's increased close to 100 times in terms of what was made 5 or 7 years ago. The sense of where that content is, where it's being monetized, has become very difficult to use in terms of a physical contract. So the first application that we took out of the blockchain was removed crypto, removed all of that, and just picked up smart contracting. So where now, hopefully by March or April this next year, most films that will release will actually come out with an ID, and that ID will, so the theater gets to pick up from that ID, the OTT player gets to pick up from that ID, the satellite gets to pick up from that ID. So that's the kind of tech we're trying to consolidate. And in India, it's especially even more relevant because unlike the West where films are made in Hollywood in one single place, here you have films being made in Bombay, in Hyderabad, in Chennai, in Kerala. So to kind of streamline that system, I think this is the best tech that we could find. Well, perfect. One of our first investments in the program was in Amar Chitrakatha, and it's a company that's pretty profitable. It's back on. If you go to any airport, any of these big public spaces where publications are sold, the comics are back in action. And most of it that sells is also, as much as the new content sells, the old content still has a lot of takers for it. Now, next year, the first big piece that we're actually putting out is a film called Hiranyakashipu. So post Bahubali was the big folklore film that we made, and this will be the big mythology film, and that will be the first of Amar Chitrakatha's film. So hopefully Indian culture ethos comes back fully into the newer system.
Actually, some of these characters can also be associated with brands. So, you know, when we invested in Amachathikada, I think the intent was how can we actually create the next Marvel Studios out of India, get some of these characters into life, which means that these characters will not be restricted to just comic books, but movies, games, merchandising, which was how Disney built Disney, right? So I think some of this is, I see a very interesting synergy between what we did in Antil Studio in the media side and what we're doing in the consumer brands with Urban-1. So today is the launch, and that's why all of us are here. Yeah, so basically what we've done is, there are some consumer brands that already approached us in the past, and then we've evaluated them and we said, okay, we'll work with one or two of them. We did one investment recently. It's a company called Herringbone and Sui, Bombay-based, very good men's bespoke tailoring brand, luxury, but they have a technology angle on to take measurements by just walking into a booth, and then it's got high scalability from that perspective. So we already did one investment from that angle, but the idea is that the applications are going to be open today. People can go to the website, which is www.urban-i.in, and then they can apply. And we will do a roadshow across the world because we have offices in Israel, New York, and Singapore. And the idea is for us to promote the Urban-1 brand, in these areas to source very interesting consumer brands or companies that are looking at trying to enter the Indian market as well. So we wanted to have a good mix of Indian and global startups because there's a lot of learning that happens with these startups. One of the things Rana pointed out last time was, design thinking or planning before the launch, right? Which is really, really strong with a lot of the Western startups, which I think Indian startups can learn, the Indian brands can learn. Similarly, understanding the culture and ability to adapt the Western brands can learn. So that's why we said, okay, this is a fantastic way for us to put a program into a structured format and bring all of these companies in February to come into Bombay. They spend a week with us, which is a very intensive boot camp. In that boot camp, they will learn about Indian market. They will interact with corporates, which are basically large distribution channels. They'll interact with investors, not just us, but investors who are investing into consumer brands. They'll interact with marketing agencies. They'll interact with some celebrities. So the idea is for them to walk away with a holistic view of how to create my speed scaling strategy in India. The output of that program is to create that plan. And then after that, we provide about 6 months to a year of support based on, what the requirement is. So it's just I think whenever we started a program, and we are in 3 sectors, as I said, media, entertainment, health, and urban, it's always about building the ecosystem because it is never about, oh, we have to do it all ourselves. It's an innovation ecosystem has to be broad-based. We need to have corporates. We need to be having mentors. We need to have experts come in and other investors as well because everybody adds value to some of these companies.
Is this program only for India or are you looking at exports as well? Like some of your partners?
Sure. So, yeah, the intent is that if there is an Indian brand that wants to go global, great, we would also help because we have those connections and networks in different parts of the world. We work with the Singapore government very closely. We are a global innovation alliance partner with the Singapore government, which means that, trying to look at all technology and science that wants to scale up in India. But on the other side, they're also looking for Indian companies to come into Southeast Asia, right? There's a huge market in Southeast Asia. Singapore is small, but the other markets are quite huge. US or Europe. It depends on which stage your company is in. Because typically in the early stage, you want to restrict yourself to just one market. so that you learn from the market, and India market is big enough. So the intent of this program was that market access in India, right? But after a while, obviously you want to explore Southeast Asia, and we will provide our help because you're a portfolio company of ours.
And what are some of the structures that one is involved with these startups? Because I imagine at a 100K investment, a startup is not going to be able to afford a celebrity.
Absolutely. From an investment standpoint, we don't want companies to apply for this program for investment. I mean, that's only if they find value in the support that we are providing, we would like them to apply, because some of these companies that are applying are also nicely capitalized. They have already large VC funds invested in them, or they've done angel rounds, so they have capital. But you know, from a question of celebrity engagement, I'll pass that question to Rana, because Rana has worked with celebrities and brands in different structures, and he could throw some light.
So there's been, so this was actually a phenomenon in the last 4 or 5 years, right? I mean, earlier there were multiple brands using multiple celebrities, endorsers, and then eventually it became about the big four. You know, there's a handful of fashion brands that can afford somebody in a celebrity space. Otherwise, it completely goes off into a designer world. There's nothing in between that we had. Then we realized that there's tech that's there. There's a bunch of consumer brands. So there've been a few deals that have been done with Savan and Ranbir in the early days, with Raw Pressery and Jacqueline that was done out at One. What else is there? Epigamia with Deepika. So all of these brands very easily got to scale up in the Indian market with their association. But again, it goes two ways. You don't want to bring a celebrity on too early for a brand that's very, very new. Then you know that a very early startup can't scale to that size when the demand comes up so quickly. So that's really what the program is for. Kind of understand what that brand needs, and then we start fixing it. Is it just a quick story that you need playing the rest in all of India, or do you need a celebrity attached to it? I think all of that is dependent very purely on the brand that kind of comes in.
You know, some of the brands that have approached us now, they don't really require a celebrity. In fact, their whole strategy is that their influences in some of those towns are the celebrities for them. So maybe that is the strategy. You don't have to always push a media spend or a celebrity spend to the startup. That's not the intent of the program. The intent is what helps the startup scale with speed.
So how big is this startup market? Have you all estimated it?
That's a very broad-based question. I mean, again, you know, it's